Ladies and gentlemen, we'll get started here shortly.
I mean, it's pretty basic right now, but I mean.
Hello, Judge.
How are you? Or back down in the area.
Yeah, right? You guys get younger every time you enter.
I try to stay away from that.
It's like a lot of trust.
First down. Could be nice for you. Yeah. So this, that's what this guy's saying too, right?
What? You are? I was there. I've been there half the time. Yeah,
How you doing?
And just a reminder. Dangerous, right? Once the first time I met her, I called her Connie.
Oh.
Yeah, just a little bit now. We're still recovering from that. You don't bring that up again, won't
Really? I'll probably give it just another minute or two before we get started.
Can't see much of the flowers. There we go. Oh, that's on purpose.
That's
Say hi.
Hi, Dad. Or meet you in person.
Kevin, I thought it was more than you. Just come over. Really nice.
Yeah, that's about right.
I'm just gonna grab some of those things. All right.
Mark, you got on that. I'm Kevin Luby. Nice to meet you.
Where the tables have turned, you're sitting down there now.
I know.
I kind of like it.
Oh,
All right.
I'm still trying to connect to the
All right. Yeah.
computer doesn't like the white.
The gavel she cracks up. Yeah, no.
All right. It's been a long mediation today, so just gathered. All right. We ready?
Give me maybe 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Forgot a pen.
All right. We will get started in 2 minutes then. Thank you very much for joining us and being here with us and for your continued patience. We'll get started shortly. Do I need, yeah. Is that better? A little bit of a microphone? Bring it closer. All right. Well, all right. All right.
How's the sound on the mic?
I think
Yeah.
it's good. I think everyone can hear me. All right. So now we're missing Ronnie, but I think we're good to go. So, welcome everyone. We appreciate everyone for coming to our 2022 State of the City, which, in looking back, as I wrote notes for this, it's hard to kind of believe that a full year has gone past, that we were giving a COVID update at the last one, and here we are. So real quickly before I begin, I would like to just introduce the other council members here. They're going to be saying some few words after I give the address, but why don't you guys just introduce yourself real quickly?
Hi there, everyone. Kate Moore. Happy that you're all here tonight. Kate Moore, happy you're all here tonight.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Paulson, Council President, and my son William is hanging out for a few minutes.
Mark Manellis, one of the newest members of the council since January. Nice to see everybody.
Lori Petrie, also new since January. It's been a great 6 months.
And then Councilor Mark McCauley will be joining us a little bit later, as well as Councilor Shauna Thompson. Unfortunately, tonight does conflict with some school graduation night, so we look forward to them joining us in a little bit. As we begin this event tonight, I'd like to do a band acknowledgement. I don't believe we've ever done one in Queen City, so tonight we acknowledge that we gather in Washington County on the traditional lands of the Atsalaki and the Kalapuya people. We recognize the enduring relationship between Indigenous people and their traditional territories. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded the land and waterways throughout the generations. But please take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds and celebrate the resilience and strength that all Indigenous people and nations have shown worldwide. This is also a call for us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of history, of knowledge, and of the land that we inhabit. I encourage all of you to visit the Five Oaks Museum to learn more about the history of the Indigenous population of Washington County. Before I begin our State of the City address, I also want to take a personal moment. I'd like to take this personal moment to acknowledge the gun violence pandemic facing our nation. Our hearts collectively broke on May 24th when we learned of the horrors that transpired at the Rock Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. And just like they did for Sandy Hook Elementary and all of the shootings that predated that. The Congressional Research Service defines mass shootings as a multiple firearm homicide incident involving one or more victims at one or more locations. According to the Washington Post, there was 163 mass shootings between 1967 and 2019. According to NPR, there have been 223 mass shootings this year alone. Statistics are difficult because one must be aware of the base data, the thresholds, the definitions, context, and all criteria used. But it doesn't really matter how many mass shootings there have been. Surely one is too many. So I urge all public officials to not look away. Ending gun violence in America is complicated, and we need the ability to identify kids who are struggling and develop a support system for which they can get help. We need to make mental health a priority in this country. We need evidence-based policy interventions. We need sensible gun laws that balance the freedoms afforded by our Constitution with the protection for all citizens for those freedoms, so those freedoms aren't contorted and abused and evil prevails. It's time for our politicians to reach across the aisle and work together, to have those difficult conversations and to work on solutions. We do not need knee-jerk reactionary short-term policy band-aids. We need to once and for all end this pandemic. For me, I have joined Moms for Action for Gun Sense in America, and I'm committed to investigating how we can do better and more here locally, and how I can use my personal platform to raise awareness, advocate for change, and amplify voices of victims of gun violence. I can, I call on all of you to find avenues for change that work for you. Helen Keller once said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Today, don't look away. Let's just all do our part, even if it is just starting with something as modest as an unguarded and honest conversation. Let's lean in together. And now to the state of our beautiful and wonderful city here in King City. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with our home, I want to just give a brief introduction. King City is now really a city for all ages. While we have our traditional 55 and older HOAs that comprise of about half of the city, the rest of our city are young families. According to the 2020 census, the population of King City is now around 5,184. Very important. We have 2,734 housing units with a total of 2,282 households. 19.6% of our households speak a language at home other than English. 43.7% of King City's population is 65 or older, with 11.4% of those, 11.4% over the age of 85. 9.6% of the residents of King City are veterans, and we thank them deeply for their service to our country. And 13.4% of those are female veterans. Of our working force, 75.9% of workers residing in King City are employees of private companies, while 1.9% are self-employed and 6.7% work for nonprofits. We have an elementary school. Go Bucks. And 12.7% of our population in King City is under the age of 18. So when I joined council in 2017, like all of you, I could not have fathomed that we would face the largest scale global health crisis in modern history. COVID-19 was immeasurably difficult for us all. To date, according to the New York Times, there have been 7,708 deaths in Oregon from COVID-19, and 613 of those were in Washington County. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge my predecessor, Ken Gibson, our council, our city staff, our police department, the staff at Deer Creek Elementary, our HOAs, our civic associations, our local businesses, TVFNR, and our residents for navigating this crisis with such grace and resilience. We really did come together as a city. We have countless stories of neighbors helping neighbors, and I hope that charitable spirit lives on long after we end this global pandemic. Going forward, we will continue to be vigilant, of course. We will continue to Zoom, unfortunately. Our council meetings will remain in a hybrid format because we have learned that accessibility with our residents is so much easier with a hybrid type format. Our ARPA grant, we've created an ARPA grant program for our local businesses. It's off and running, and we look forward to our first applicant in that program. Like all of you, COVID-19 was all-consuming for this past year and a half, but businesses had to continue. So I am so proud of our city staff and all that they have accomplished during this just measurable adversity that they face. And I want to touch upon some of their past and current accomplishments. So we are currently in our master planning process. We are working on our transportation systems plan and our alternative circulation analysis. We have and continue to have road paving projects, sidewalk improvement projects. We are partnering with Clean Water Services to instill a purple line in King City, which will extend recycled water down to our park for irrigation purposes. We partnered with PG&E to install 2 streetlights near Deer Creek to increase visibility and safety at our school. We're partnering with Sherwood Broadband to add redundancy to the fiber optic network in and around King City. We are working hard on improvements by adding drainage and adding some facilities down to our sports fields and court, our sports court down at the King City Community Park, which is our only community park in the city. We had the installation of our first public artwork in King City and partnered with Tualatin Valley Create, who helped us identify and engage with artist Mark Brody. We built 2 pony walls down at the park, which then were covered in mosaic kind of artwork. And Mark worked with the citizens of King City to actually create some of those mosaic tilings. So if you visit our park, the wording, the flowers, and the butterflies actually were made by the residents of King City, including my own kids. I lost my train of thought because I started talking off the cuff. All right. The King City Community Foundation recently purchased a mosaic bench at this year's Deer Creek fundraiser, and then donated it to the city and installed it down at the park next to the Little Free Library. So if you go down there, you'll see a beautiful little mosaic bench. And in the near future, we look forward to the first 4th of July parade that we have had since 2019. We look forward to a summer filled with sporting events at our new improved sports field. We look forward to grant applications to help restore habitat and control erosion down at the park, and to make other future park improvements like public restrooms and resurfacing of the track so that our community members of all ages can enjoy our beautiful quarter-mile track. I want to thank and highlight some of our partners. We really can't do what we do here in the city without our partners. So just to name a few of them: Comcast and Ziply, Northwest Natural, PGE, Kinder Morgan, Clean Water Services, the Tigers Water Board, Sherwood Broadband, PTSD, TVSNR, Metro West, Washington County, Metro Councilor Rosenthal, who's here tonight with us, the Washington County Board of Commissioners, Commissioner Rogers is here with us tonight, as are many other people that our audience is watching from Zoom or on TV. Nancy is here in the room with Courtney Narrow, and we have former Mayor John Cook. We have many other elected officials, our King City esteemed Judge Ruby here tonight with us. And I want to thank Tualatin Riverkeepers, our development community and residential stakeholders in and around King City, and all of our neighboring cities of Washington County. There are countless others, which I have probably forgotten tonight. Mike's gonna kind of help me at the end here if I forget anyone else. But truly, you know, city business is much larger than just a brick and mortar building and the staff who are here. We absolutely couldn't do what we do without Mike Weston and his entire team, with Ronnie. Certainly we couldn't do it without King City Police Department and Chief Hapala and Lieutenant Sigler, who's here with us. We also have Chaplain Parrish, who's here tonight as well with us. And without my team, right? Certainly, this is an entire council. Everyone is instrumental, and none of us could really do anything without any of you. So with that, lastly and most importantly, I also want to thank our families, right? As most of you know here or watching, we all give up a lot of time with our families to be here and to serve the city that we love. And without their support at home, we couldn't be here. So I want to thank them as well. Mike, please, if there's any glaringly obvious group that I forgot to call out. I do apologize, it certainly isn't,
I'm gonna do my best here, but we have, Paul Johns from Murray Smith and Associates here, they do our engineering work, thank you very much. Teresa from Westside Economic Alliance, thanks for coming by. We have Kathy from the KCCA, our neighbor over here with the HOA. We have Tony from PGE is here. Who am I, Courtney, I saw you sneak in here. We have Mr. Myers here as a plan commissioner, thank you for your service as well. Special thanks to our staff. Our staff does incredible things. It's amazing that they are able to accomplish with what little we have and getting stuff done. So they've also put together a great spread out in the lobby for anyone that wants some snacks and things. And thank you, Judge Luby, for all you do for us. Appreciate it. And seeing you here, even through the pandemic and everything going on, you know, it's a team effort and it takes everyone. So thank you. Thank you to the council.
and on that, I would love for the council each to say a few words and introduce themselves, because many of them are new faces to some of you in this room. So, where does it start with you?
Well, gee. Thanks for the opportunity for me to go first. So this has been quite a 6 months. I was appointed to the council in January, so it's been just about 6 months, and it's been quite the wild ride. Learning tons of things, getting involved with a lot of different aspects of the city, and also reaching out and learning things about Metro and Washington County as a whole. So it's fun. I'm having a good time. I'm continuing to learn, and hope that it just continues that way. And working with all these folks have been so supportive. It's just been a great thing so far.
Mark Manellis, like Lori. I was appointed in January as well this year. And it has been a great experience so far, getting out into the community, meeting with everyone, talking with neighbors, and just really look forward to what's to come in the future here with the city of King City. Hopefully we can guide it and do some great things. Thank you.
Don, I'm going to go to the microphone for you. Michael Paulson, I was elected in 2018 to the council, coming up on the end of my, hopefully, first term, rather than last. But, you know, I moved to King City in 2016 and fell in love with the community, had the good fortune to live a couple of doors down from our former mayor, who encouraged me to get involved and take part. And you know, I love the mix that we have in our city of from the classic King City, how it was originally set up, to young families, and I probably should use my mic by now. So thank you all for being here. Really appreciate the opportunity to serve with you.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Kate Moore. I joined just last year in the middle of the pandemic. So it was an interesting experience to run for office my first time online, virtual experience. And, well, it was successful for me that time, but it was really nice when everything started opening back up, to be able to meet people in person that I had only met over video. So it's been a really interesting last year for sure, and I'm really looking forward to being able to come here in person. And I would encourage all of you, not just come once a year, please join and come to our council meetings whenever you would like. Open invitation. You can also join on Zoom.
Well, again, just a big thank you for coming this evening, and thank you to city staff. And with that, I'm going to adjourn so that we can have a few nibbles and some. I was going to say libations, but that's not tonight. That's another city. That will be another event. I'll tell you about it. So, thank you all for coming. There you go.
Over, right?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the State of the City. We will be going to break, and then we will be picking back up at 6 p.m. for the council meeting.
Yeah. Where did I put this?
So anytime
Ah.
we can help you doing and you can drop in from anywhere.
We are at, 4 minutes late, all right. Mike, you want to call us to order?
Or you call it to order and then I'll do.
Awesome, rather, Mike, I call to order, will you do roll call? That's what I meant.
All right, Counselor Thompson.
Sure.
Counselor Paulson.
Here.
Counselor Manal.
Yes.
Counselor Petrie.
Here.
Counselor Choli is not here. Mayor Fender.
Here.
Oh, and Counselor Moore.
She will be back.
All right.
After the graduation.
So I just have Counselor Choli is.
All right. I think that's, there, all right. Go. Well, I appreciate everyone in the room and joining us from home. We had our State of the City tonight, so we are starting a few minutes late, but I'm excited. So first on the agenda is going to be approval of our minutes, but we have none at this time, so we're going to move on to something I'm very excited about, which is our special presentation. This is in recognition of the George family. Might I assume you are the George family? Wonderful. If I may, let me just give a quick introduction of what I understand had happened, and then I'll probably turn it over to Ms. Sigler. Well, now, a few months ago now, at this point, the Georges, I will say, Mr. George and his daughter, were driving home and came across a youth in, I think what is fair to say is in distress, right? I'm going to wait just a moment because we have Catherine Moore coming, and I know she wants to be here for this, but well, not to make it awkward, you walk up, but welcome back, Catherine Moore. The Heinberg family saw a youth in distress. It was late at night, and instead of driving past like so many other cars, as I believe you noted, they stopped. They called for help. Our officer Courtney arrived on the scene, and they stayed and assisted. And I think I don't think it can be understated that their assistance was not only needed, but extremely valuable given the parameters of the situation. And of course, for privacy reasons, I don't want to go into too much detail about the actual detail, but just or the actual event. But just to say that it was important to us as a council, for the King City Police Department, to recognize and to thank you guys for stepping up and doing what was right, especially in an uncomfortable situation, and just really providing assistance. It's very easy to just continue on your way, especially when it's in the evening and you have places, right? You have home to get to, and you have things to do, and bedtime, and food, and so forth. But you guys stayed and really made a difference. And so for that, we just wanted to give you our appreciation and our thanks, and just to recognize that you guys kind of went above and beyond. So, Lieutenant Sigler?
Yes, I'm Lieutenant Sigler. Nice to meet you. If you guys want to stand up, I'm going to read this to you. This is from our Chief of Police. Got you guys these fancy, yeah, right? That's just the letter embroidered. I want to read this to you guys to give you a little bit more detail of what occurred. On April 9th, 2022, at about 10:15 p.m., officers with the King City Police Department, Washington County Sheriff's Office responded to a welfare check on Southwest Beach Bend Road involving a young female child running in the road. On scene, providing valuable information to the responding unit about the young female's description was Jared, George, and Dahlia. Okay. Jared and Dahlia provided information on the description of the female, and most importantly, that she would not communicate with Jared and would only speak to herself. Mr. George had to advise the child multiple times and physically steer her towards the sidewalk out of harm's way, and at one time had to place himself in danger while stopping an oncoming vehicle to protect the child. Good stuff. The King City Police Department wishes to thank Jared, George, and his daughter Dahlia for their role in preventing what could have been a very serious incident involving a vehicle pedestrian and caring for the life of the child. To add to that, I've been doing this for 16 years, and when we get a call for service, it starts with a citizen, and the information we get, and I will tell you that every emergency that I've ever been to, time is of the essence. And the decisions we make as we're going about our daily routine matter. And the decision to stop and help change the course of what could have been a disaster. So I would personally like to thank you on behalf of King City Police Department, the mayor, Jamie Fender, Mike Weston, the city manager, all of our council members. This is the stuff we like to see in the citizens. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We have one for each of you because, you want to do one each and then?
Sure.
We can take a photo.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
Is there time for me to say a quick word?
of course, we would love it.
I would just
Yeah,
like
come
to
stand up here.
turn the things back around to King City Police. Officer Courtney, as mentioned, is the one that was on scene, and she wasn't even, as I understand, even dispatched to the call. So she immediately recognized what was happening with the situation. In addition, without going into too much detail, she just showed incredible instinct about how to handle that particular situation in a way that that just really made her stand out. So I want to offer, I'm not sure if she's here, but if she's but please
The only
pass
other
on.
place she'd rather be, Florida vacation.
Okay. Well, please pass on our thanks
Will do.
because she really made a huge difference that night in understanding how to handle that situation. And I know that your profession doesn't often have as many accolades as it should.
Well, I appreciate that, and honestly, when the citizens and the police work together, this is the result.
Exactly.
So, thank you, and I hired her. So, we got two of these.
And they, I believe they are identical. So, Liza, we do ladies first.
Okay.
And you want?
You want to hold that?
Oh, you mind if we get one?
My hair, you get also the, there you go. All right.
How's my hair?
Same as mine.
Yeah, perfect.
In there. Mark, if you can scoot a little bit to your left.
Oh.
Mark, there you go.
Just.
Josh, there you go, one.
I guess, hold on, maybe we should just do photos of both.
There you go.
It seems silly to do, there we go, now we're clicking on all of them.
Good, all right, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll hold it for a second. Thank you so much.
One more with both of them.
Okay, oh yeah, okay, back, front.
You introduced something.
I know, I changed the protocol.
There we go. Right, 1, 2, 3. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you again. I really.
Yeah.
Good work.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Of course.
Good job.
So much for having us.
Thanks for the
I
time.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Well, now, you
Nice job.
guys are certainly welcome to stay for our council meeting. You don't have to, we won't take offense.
And there's a lot of food out there still.
Yeah, please help yourself. Help yourself to food. Beverages.
There, guys, thank you.
All right, thank you again so much.
Have a good evening.
All right. So at this time, thanks everyone for the patience regarding our presentation. Now we will move on to open forum. So this is public comments and testimony may be presented during the Zoom meeting, and the telephone numbers are provided on the agenda. Please let staff know ahead of time if you would like to provide comments, which have already happened. Then this time, there we go, I'm just reading the wrong paragraph. Okay, here we go. At this time, the council will be happy to receive your comments pertaining to items on the agenda, including questions, suggestions, complaints, and items for the future. Each person's time will be limited to 3 minutes. So let's first start on Zoom. Ronnie, do you have any comments on Zoom?
You'll need a request for anyone that's interested to.
Never. Please raise your hand on
Raise your
Zoom
hand
if
on
you want to chat.
Give them about 30 seconds, Ronnie, and then if we don't see any hands raised, we can move on.
Again, if you are hearing this on Zoom, please hit the raise hand function on your screen, or you can take your question.
No public comments at this time on Zoom.
Okay, no questions. All right, so in the audience, is there any public comments? Please join us. We used to have a podium, but you can, if you need a microphone, and introduce yourself, state where you are from, and then give us your comments, please.
I'll give you a podium here.
Oh. Official. I like having the podium.
We weren't sure how many people we were gonna have.
Yeah. It wasn't dark, it was
My name,
Mike,
All right.
let him use yours, because this one
this
not
one
working,
doesn't
right?
work.
Check.
All right.
Okay, my name is Gary Woods, and I'd like to start by thanking Shauna Thompson for bringing up the safety issue in the last meeting. And I sent her a message about it, and I appreciated her doing that. The track does need to be repaired. As everybody is aware, I'm not telling anybody anything they don't already know. I also want to add the fact that the pathway from the toilet up to the little library has a problem, and when it rains, it floods through there, mud comes down, and most people don't pass that way. And in the wintertime, I don't know if you pass through there in the wintertime, but in the wintertime, it's black ice. And my wife slipped. I caught her before she hit the ground. We're moving on the other side of getting a little older, and we don't pass through that anymore. So I'm a little confused. After you all talked about that at the last meeting, then you continued to carry on about possible purchasing a piece of land at the end of 131st Street, but you didn't have money to fix the track. Or I've been waiting for 2 years to see if somebody would do something about the path, and nobody has. So there's no money to fix the park, but we suddenly have reserve money to buy a piece of property that I think these guys know a bit about, that is not really needed at this point. So I went down and I talked to the owners on both sides at the end of 131st to find out what was this whole thing about, because I figured I can do that and learn what y'all are talking about. Found out it was a quarter of an acre of land that doesn't have access without crossing private land. So I became more confused, thinking, what in the world is going on when we can't fix the park, and yet we want to do something with island annexation. Of course, you already know that I'm not happy about you considering seriously running down Fisher Road. That's no news to anybody either. But we are just concerned about why things that really matter to people in the community now are not being considered and done something about. So that's why I appreciate Shauna saying that she's been bringing up these issues for 2 years, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and appreciate what you had to say. And I'd like the council to put some priority on some of the things that need to be done for the current citizens, not just looking down the road. nobody that's on the No Fisher Road extension is against extending, the city to the west. Don't want it going through our community and changing our community. So I just wanted to encourage you to seriously consider the park, things that need to be done, and of course, encourage you to look seriously when the time comes at alternative number 5, which is not the same as the no build. It keeps on being said it's the no build, that's not the facts of the matter. So thank you for your time, appreciate it.
All right, thank you. This point of order, right, because I think this came up in meetings past, and what we had talked about was that, I don't recall if we as a council are able to respond to public comment at the time of the public comment, or we reserve that for later.
I would highly recommend that the council wait until the topic is actually discussed and then discuss it at the time of the topic.
Okay.
So at
Very
this
good.
point,
All right.
the topic that Mr. Woods was talking about was discussed with the budget. So when we get to budget, that'd be the time to.
All right, perfect, thank you. Well, Ms. Woods, we thank you for your time for coming in tonight. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at, open forum? Please come on up and, grab the mic and.
First, or?
No, you just,
If you just say your name and
Can you
address.
say your name and your address for me real quick? I'm sorry.
Sure, Gary Woods, 13538 Southwest Fisher Road.
and then the same, please introduce yourself and state your address.
Hi, I'm Nikki Jordan. I am the owner of property at 17740 Southwest 131st Avenue, very end of the road, 131st, been there for 25 years. I guess, in comments, in responding to Gary, we were, discussing the property that was last, brought up, that there's a little tiny parcel, and for the last 25 years, the person who owns it has been trying to sell it. And every once in a while, people go back and try to find it, and they can't, because you have to cross private property to get to it. And the only access to that parcel, which is small, is the river. And there's no road that's maintained, it's all overgrown. To the point where there's huge gullies, and washouts where the water comes in. So anyway, it was a surprise when I learned that the city was trying to purchase the land to then have an easement and create an island to then annex our property. I have 5 acres. I've had horses on that acreage and different animals. I grow things. I have tractors come in and have to mow it. And I was surprised to learn I didn't know about this. And I am a longtime resident. I'm a Tigard, right, Washington County, not of King City. I have been to a meeting before, several years ago, where it was discussed they were trying to bring us into the city. I'm not against going into the city. What I am against is any kind of building of anything that leads to the river. The wildlife that's there has been pushed to nothing, and we get to see them dwindle and die and live with it, because we're at the end of the road where it's just pushed everything down there. So it's a sanctuary, first of all. But anyway, so anything that goes beyond the road is just a bad idea. And if you're doing this to annex things in, it's just, I don't know, I think you have better things to probably do than try to do that. I'm not sure what your motivations are, but I sure would like to know. I'd like to have a meeting to understand what they are, so that I know how to behave. Because I was just, again, surprised to learn about this. So, if we are annexed into the city, I can't build on my land, right? It's a floodplain. So the only value it has is to grow things and to have livestock. Not sure how that fits with your ordinances. It doesn't fit with me. So you understand my issue, is you need to involve the people that you're affecting and bring them in. So I'm not sure when, how that happens, but that's my expectation of this council. And whoever you're dealing with your consultants that might be leading you one way or another, I'm not sure what the end game here is. Do you just want to grow the city? Why? Why do you want to bring in rural places where we can't do anything? We can't develop. We can't do anything. We can't even bring in dirt. Again, I've lived there for a long time, and I know a lot, right? So please talk to us. Reach out. That's my expectation of all of you. And if you don't do that, you're not doing your job. Okay? So, all right, I'm open to, I don't know who will be contacting me, but that's what my expectation is.
Can you, write your, contact details down so that we have it and then we can get it to Mike? And we thank you for your comments tonight. Thank you. Come on up and please, state your name for the record and.
Stephen Taylor, 12700 Southwest East Bend Road. I would like to speak about some property at the end of 131st that my tax dollars have paid for years. And 50 years ago, I worked with my dad to get a lot of the clean water services because he was the Lake Grove Water Board Commissioner. And for years now, since we've had that Clean Water Services, or back in the day, we called United Sewer Agency, our tax dollars have had this property sitting at 131st. There's a pump station there. It's what filtered the sewer from King City before in the area, and I would just like to say, I would like to see that turned into a park where all the community could use it after our tax dollars have been paying this vacant land, and it's a shame to not use what's there. Hopefully we can coordinate with Metro, and I'd like to say that the city council has been here, and you can always come and talk here. You can't expect these people to go and talk to 5,000 people. We need to come here and say what our ideas are. And I'm just a counterpoint, not to be rude, but it's our responsibility as citizens to come in and share what we think. So I would not expect them to contact you. I would expect you to contact, and you just did, which is wonderful. And hope to see you every meeting.
As soon as I got back here, that I was here.
All right, thank you. We've,
And I'll give this back to Brian.
Thank you. That's my job today.
all right, any other public comments tonight in the room? And, Ronnie, my brain is just, mushy tonight. No one indicated on Zoom. Okay, well then we will move on to new business. So we are moving on to resolution number R-2022-03, resolution adopting the budget, making appropriations, and authorizing fund transfers and levying taxes for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 for the city of King City. The action reflected tonight is to discuss and approve or disapprove resolution 2022-3. Staff recommendation presented, what do you think?
Staff recommendation is to review and adopt the recommendations from the Budget Committee, which were some minor modifications that are reflected in the document that you have in front of you. This would also be the time if you wanted to discuss some of the comments made by folks in the audience on how we might be able to implement or take into account some of their concerns, if possible. You will find that this year we saw a reduction in our overall reserve accounts, and those were reflected as you go through on page 3. You'll see that the city is budgeting a reserve account of about $1.89 million, whereas last year we finished with a reserve account of $2.2 million. So that's a reduction that we're budgeting of about $300,000 to $400,000. Now, whether that is actualized, we'll find out at the end of the year. Some things we budget conservatively on our revenues and our expenditures. So in that, what it means is that we budget on the low end for our revenues and on the high end for our expenditures in the hopes that we will stay within budget and not go over. We've been pretty good about that in the past. We've stayed within our means and been able to set aside a decent amount of money. We've spent money over the last few years as well with the revisions and remodeling of City Hall, street improvements on Fisher and 131st Street, as well as street improvements throughout the city and other locations. Those are all reflected within the budget documents that you have in front of you. If you were looking at funds for the trail that Mr. Woods had mentioned or other improvements for the parks, we would need to look at the Parks Fund. So if you go into the budget document and you go out back to the Parks Fund, I believe you'll find it about 3/4 of the way through toward the end of the document. Let me see if I can get you an exact page. The last one. Here it is. It's on page 16. Is the Park Fund. Inside the Park Fund, we have about $115,000 in that fund, and that's all we have. So that once it's used, it's gone. In other words, so we try not to use these funds for maintenance purposes because that's not what the SDC funds were permitted us to use. We are allowed to use these SDC funds for capital improvements that are part of the park master plan. So when we talk about the trail around the park, we don't have a Parks and Recreation levy, a Parks and Recreation fund that's being funded on an annual basis. We have $115,000 left in that fund to meet any sort of park improvements. They have to be spent on park improvements. They can't be spent on maintenance. So therein lies kind of the rub on what that entails. So then you're looking at where you can pull those funds from. So then you're looking at pulling those funds from the general fund or from a reserve account to pay for the track around there, or we try to get grants, or Parks and Trails grants, and that's what we've tried to do over the past 2 years is to get grant money to help us pay for and fix the repairs around the track. So we've applied for 2 grants and legislative money. Over the course of the last 2 years, we applied for an ODOT Trails grant, and we applied for regional flex funds. And we've also asked our legislature for help on acquiring some funds to help us fix the trail. We know that it's a safety problem. We know that the roots were infiltrating because when the trail was put in, they did not do a root barrier around the track. We, this last year, with our own maintenance crew, went out, rented a ditch witch that kind of cut the ditch along the backside and put in a root barrier on the backside of the track. But that's not going to resolve the problems that we had already developed. So we are trying to make improvements at the park. Little improvements we can do. We have one maintenance person, and that one maintenance person has been able to get a lot accomplished over the course of the last couple of years. When we consider, the backstop got put in, the wedges for the baseball, fencing along the sides for that. The drainage, that was a huge undertaking. That was part of the system development charges for that, that we were able to put in because it was associated with play fields. So we were able to justify putting in the drainage for play fields and redevelopment of that with the system development charge. We've also put the lighting out there using both a Metro Parks grant and some of our system development, like 0.25% of that, 25% of was our money, and then a Metro paid for 75% of the other funds for the lights out there.
I meant the drainage that our public works employee actually just did over the last month, 2 new drains and, some significant draining work around the center field, that he also installed.
Yeah, so we were seeing some puddling on the north side of the field as it comes down the hill there at the bottom end of 135th. And then we were seeing some drainage on the southwest corner near where the garden shed is, that has our mower and other equipment in there. And so Dave went out there and was able to put in a couple drains there, and they have worked phenomenally once we've got them working. The one that we had at the southwest corner was clogged up. We were able to find the clog and unclog it and clear that line, and now it's been draining fine. Of course, rainy season's almost over now. But we were able to get it for last week. That one part that Mr. Woods was talking about, north of the rest area there, that seems to be like an underground spring of some kind coming out right there at the bottom of that hill and going across. We're gonna need to go in and figure out how to convey that water across. It's gonna require us to cut that track, I believe, and then try to channelize that water and then get it into the wetland drainage on the other side. So that's a little bit bigger of a project than just cutting in a storm drain, because we have to cut out the asphalt and channel it over. So there's some permitting there as well that we have to work on. It's not just tying into existing outfalls. But anyways, I digress. So we're here to talk about budget stuff, how we can maybe address some of those if the council wants to have that discussion. I don't need to answer questions.
Can you explain to us the difference between maintenance and improvement when it comes to what we're allowed to spend money on?
Sure. So maintenance would be maintaining the current capital improvements that you have. So if we were going to do a resurfacing of the tennis courts or the basketball courts or one of those things, that'd be maintenance. Replacing a basketball hoop, maintenance, net, maintenance, the mowing, maintenance, any kind of trimming of the vegetation out there is also maintenance aspects of those. For capital improvements, for those that would be approved by the system development charges, those are going to be replacing play structures, ball fields. If we wanted to expand the basketball court to make a full court, if we wanted to add another set of tennis courts, if we wanted to do horseshoe pits, if we wanted to do dugouts, if we wanted to do mentioned cornhole things, those elements we'd have to check with our attorneys to make sure that they're in the list of park improvements that qualify for the system development fee. So the system development fee itself that funds this park fund is collected at each house that's developed within King City. And I believe it's something like $3,000 to $4,000 per house at this point in time. It adjusts annually based on CPI, I believe. It can adjust annually based on CPI West, I believe is what we use for urban and urban West Coast. So every year it goes up a little bit, but it's still, you're looking at $4,000 per house. This year, we probably have 11 to 12 units coming in on Ponderosa Pines, and 16 units coming in at the corner of 131st and Fisher. So all in all, you're looking at 28 units, 28 to 29 units total. And those funds can be used for improvements. So if we wanted to do new play structure, or we wanted to add fencing for a dog park, or things of that nature, and you have to think like a capital improvement that's not necessarily there already.
Well, one of your examples was replacing the sport court. with a different sport court. So could we replace the pathway with a different pathway?
It was expanding, so if you would expand, so say you took the basketball court and turned it from a half court to a full court, right? So then you could use the funds, I believe, for improving that court, right?
Could we widen the pathway, make it a wider pathway?
Still only have $100,000 in there. It would be a question for our attorney to ask and see. I believe it's going to be classified as maintenance, and I don't think it's going to qualify unless we're going to add a new trail. If we're going to add a new trail, maybe.
How do we get an answer from the attorney on it?
We can just send them an email.
Is that something I should do, or is that something the city does?
We can do it. We'll CC on it and get their answer.
I feel like that's something we should look into, and if we can't use that money, then I would like to explore using some reserve money for it.
Council decision.
Okay, other comments, other discussion?
I think I would just voice that I do agree that we need to try and find some way of addressing it, because, I mean, from a purely financial standpoint, we also could get sued.
So as a recap, the grant application, well, I shouldn't say grant application, the application to the legislature that I put in I believe it was January, with Brett Neron's support and assistance, we applied to resurface the track, to address wetlands and some habitat restoration and erosion control along within the wetlands, and then to install a very simple but permanent restroom at the park so that we no longer have to have porta potties. I just, well, for all of that work, it was, I think, a $380,000 package is what we had to apply for. Unfortunately, we weren't pulled into this fiscal year's budget. There's always a chance for next year. And I think, just as a comment, that, you know, when I first started on council in 2017, the park had an unusable swampland of some grass, mostly holes, and unusable ground, I would say. There was the track, and then there was the two play structures, and really nothing else. I don't even think we had a porta potty at that time. And so the improvement to the park has been a priority of this council since I came on, and part of the impetus, besides speaking with Mike Weston and former Mayor May Gibson, but it was also the event on the 4th of July festival that we had down there. And then we started really thinking, this is such a utilizable and beautiful park that we really didn't have a lot of visitors down there. It was barren even when I first started taking my kids down there in 2017. Very little use of even the play structures. So over the years, the use of the park has really grown, the popularity of the park has grown, our awareness of the park, our commitment to park improvements has grown, and grant funding is such a vital part of sustaining a city because it doesn't come out of taxpayers' dollars, right? And as a small city with a budget of only about $3 million, it is completely incumbent upon us to absolutely take advantage of every single funding opportunity out there that's outside of our general fund. And so it is a balance. It is a balance between being fiscally responsible with our general fund and applying for grants. There is a ton of trail and park grants out there that we can get funding for. Unfortunately, we weren't successful on the 2 grants that we've applied for. We weren't successful on the legislature. I agree that maybe now then it is time to kind of look at taking out of the general fund, but it certainly wasn't, any lack of improvements out of the park that weren't being funded by general funding wasn't an oversight. it wasn't, just because we don't care about our park, it wasn't because there's a lack of interest, it is because we've tried to this point to be fiscally responsible with our tax dollars. So with that, does anyone else have any comments or questions? At this point, it perhaps makes the most sense, to maybe table this to the next agenda pending some discussion or some answers from, Peter, Watts, who is our, city attorney, but I don't know if that is what you guys were contemplating. Are you ready to, take a vote and either approve or disapprove the resolution tonight, or do you want to take some other course of action?
I have a question. So if we take money either from the general fund or reserve funds, and then, since we're in the process of trying to get grant money from the state, if that comes through, could we replenish that money we spent, or does that go away if we use those funds? Or a way to reimburse it?
No, I don't think that works that way. The grants, when we apply for grants and we see that money come in, it's pretty much earmarked for particular milestones and benchmarks with those funds. And so we have to illustrate the expense of those funds through invoices, and it's really regulated on how that money is spent and what it goes to when we get the grants.
So if we had invoices and everything to show that we spent money on that, would we be able to then?
The trick is typically there's a notice to proceed with a grant, and you're not allowed to spend any money until you receive the notice to proceed. So at that point in time, why spend your own money when you have the grant money there, right? So what I've found in the past is that if you spent the money prior to the notice to proceed, they are not going to give you credit for spending that money, and they're not going to reimburse you for that money. So you can't even use it for your share of the match, the 10 or 25 or 35% match. So you really get stuck waiting in the waiting game until you get the notice to proceed, and then you can go forward. It's unfortunate. But it doesn't mean at the end, what we can do is move forward on the budget that's before you today. Keep in mind that we have the track as one of our primary goals. If the council decides at a later date that they want to elevate this to a top priority and get it done and spend money on it, we can always come back with a supplemental budget and readjust numbers and have staff rework it to meet that need. The thing I would caution the council on is that we're already budgeting a reduction to our reserve fund by $400,000 this year because we're doing a couple other pet projects. If we keep diving into the reserves, it's going to be unsustainable. That's my advice to the council, is that we need to be cautious on how we dive into the reserves, because it is kind of a rainy day fund.
And I guess just to clarify, I'm from what I was bringing up, it's just that I think at least engaging with Peter and just finding out kind of what are other options with this is a good idea just to explore, because it is a safety hazard and we do need to address it, and understanding that we don't necessarily have that in the budget right now, but what are some other options with it since those grant applications have not been successful?
Sure. I don't know if our attorney, Mr. Watts, is the right attorney. I believe it was Jordan Raymond, who was the legal counsel for the city when the King City West plan was put into effect. And so we would need to check with them. They're the ones that are the legal counsel in regards to the system development charges. So we'd probably have to reach out to, I think it's Ed Tromke over there, and I think he's familiar with it, and he'd be able to get us a response.
Other comments?
Yeah, could we get a quote? Could we have things come out, or do we have to have the intent and be ready to spend the money, like, because we don't know what the expense is.
So we have a quote, we do have a quote because I had to attach it to my application to the legislature. I can tell you, since this is kind of my wheelhouse, by this point it's going to be updated, we would need to get, probably some additional, I don't believe that company, if we contacted them, it would be interesting to see if they would honor that. In fact, if they would, we would probably want to just run with it at this point, because, we would have to probably obtain a new quote, but,
We have an engineer's estimate from Murray Smith and Associates. Yeah, I kind of wish Paul Johnson was still here, because I could, query him on it, on everything that's associated with the repair of the track. It's not just a grind and re-asphalt or just overlay. You have to grind the asphalt off that's there, repack the base, because it's obviously been disrupted by the tree roots that kind of came under there, and then relay the base and then reapply the asphalt. I believe those figures, and I'm going off memory here, and Mayor Fender probably knows better than I do the exact number, but I believe it was like
I'm actually
75 to 150 or something to that effect. And I think the total project cost for what we were talking about, phase 1 and phase 2, was roughly $350,000, and that was the additional track out there along the riverfront. So I think in total it was 350. I think that portion was close to 100,000, a little less, I want to say, to do that segment of the track. And Mayor Fender's looking it up right now. Maybe she has it, but and that was before we've seen construction prices skyrocket. So.
Question. This is good information, good conversation, but that doesn't preclude us from going ahead and approving the budget and then addressing this at a later time, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
So I don't have it broken out too well, but for the track and for the I'm going to call it the trail. So the track is the asphalt. For the track and the trail, it was $203,000. $203,000.
They don't have numbers for just the track.
I've got to dig that. I don't want to do it right now. But.
Any comments?
Not at this time. Any other comments or discussion?
Are there any questions on the rest of the budget document? I think most of the councilors are very familiar with it, being involved with the budget committee, so.
Questions? I will entertain a motion at this time.
I will move that council adopt the resolution number R 2022-03, adopting the budget.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
There is one, some we have to correct on it. It's at the very bottom. It's, by Ken Dixon, mayor, should be changed to, James Bennett.
Oh, that is an excellent catch there.
You saw that, you didn't put it in the resolution.
All right, Lori, at this time, would you want to amend your motion?
Yes, I amend the motion to include the correction of the name for the mayor. The end of the resolution.
Have a second?
I second the amended resolution,
I have a question real quick that I've been meaning to ask Nick Brady. Is there a way that we can separate, and we don't have to do it necessarily in this budget, but when you kind of look at the summary of the general fund, it shows city council, $95,000, which is, the majority of that is the attorney fee. Can we separate that out so that it's not falling under city council? Because the members of the public could look at that and think, oh, the council members are making $95,000 a year, but we're all volunteers, make $0 a year. And I would love that to be separated, if possible.
And so I'm gonna push pause just for now, and, which is totally fine. I just wanted to make a reminder that when there's a motion on the floor, we do technically have to vote prior to any discussion. So I think here, Mike, because I believe the comment, can we entertain the discussion of the comment now, but as a reminder, just going forward, that, when there's a motion on the floor.
So the way this would go is you'd have a motion and a second, and then you would have discussion.
Oh, we can
So-
start the discussion after there's a motion on the floor.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's the ideal time to have the discussion, is you have your motion, second, and then you have discussion.
Oh, I thought we had to just vote. Okay, I apologize, sorry. It popped into my head as Shauna was talking, and I thought I better just say something. Okay, so back to Shauna's question, Mike. How can we make sure to carve out that?
I am wondering, and it's just, so it's the name of the bucket where all that money is. City council is the name in, right?
Okay, so the reason legal counsel is under city council is because technically the legal counsel is retained by the city council.
Right.
They're not retained by any other department. They are independent from city staff. They're independent from administrative department. They are your attorneys. So this is a cost associated with the aspect of running a city council. And therefore, that's why legal services are under that. A lot of public outreach sometimes is under that as well. Any sort of event, like tonight's event, State of City, all expenses for State of City go under that event as well. You figure that city council isn't just the council members, it's the entire body and what it represents for the whole city. And so, to be honest, $90,000 is a small sum to pay for the services that you as a volunteer body are rendering a city of 5,000 people. So it might seem like a large number, but to be honest, you pull up city council budgets for other cities around the country, and you would be quite surprised at the size of those budgets.
It's a very small number.
I definitely agree, it's just all about public perception and, but, you know, it was just a question, if we can't remove it, I understand.
I will vouch that this council never submits for mileage reimbursement,
No?
and they are completely volunteer, and there is no salary whatsoever. So, you guys are great, everything you do is just phenomenal.
Would it be possible to just change the name of the bucket to city council operations or something of the sort?
I like that, yeah. I think that's a great idea.
Clear.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm fine with changing the name of it.
City council legal fund.
Well, it's.
But it's
Well,
more than.
yeah.
How that works.
Yeah. I like that.
Operation.
I like operations, and, yeah. There we go.
All right, I will talk to Mira, and I'm sure that we can change the name from city council to city council operations for future budgets. Is that sufficient?
Yes. Thank you. Other discussion, other comments?
Yeah, Councilor Trolley has 2 minutes.
Yeah. And Councilor Choi, we see you on Zoom. Do you have any comments or questions about this resolution 2022-03? The budget. A moment. Right, I don't believe so, so, at this time.
No, I do not.
Are we ready for a vote? Oh. I'm sorry, Tamara, we didn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
No, I said, sorry, I do not have any.
Okay, perfect. That's what I thought you said, but I thought I would just, re-ask rather than assume. Other questions or comments or discussion? Right, then we have a, motion that's been seconded, so it's time for a vote. All those in favor of adopting with the, requested change, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Smart, if you can raise your hand if you, or take yourself off mute and say aye. We have that, we have a 20-second lag, I believe. Convenience of Zoom, yes, a little cumbersome and tiny.
You could also submit it through chat.
Oh, yeah, Smart, send it through chat, if you will.
And then, so right now I have 6 for, 0 nays, and 1 abstained so far. The motion passes.
Rose is in.
Okay. All right. Then, moving on to resolution R-2022-04, resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenue. And Mike Weston will present on staff recommendations.
Staff recommends the city pass resolution 2022-04, election to receive state revenues.
Is there any discussion?
Can you give us a little more information about what that means?
Means that we will receive state revenues. No, it basically means that we will be able to receive state revenues by taxes, state taxes, property taxes, state liquor taxes, hotel taxes,
OLCC?
yeah, the OLCC is the liquor and marijuana taxes.
Is this just a renewal of something we currently have, or?
Every year, the cities elect to receive state funds. You can elect not to receive state funds, but then you wouldn't get any tax credit.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move adoption of resolution R 2022-04.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All right. Leave Shauna beat you to it. Any discussion? We ready for a vote? All right, call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And Mark, yet again, if you can just either drop in the chat or pop off your mute button and tell us if you also.
Are there any nays?
Don't believe there's any nays. Okay, and Smart raised his hand. All right, now we are moving on to discuss Oregon gun laws and open carry. There is no action of the council tonight. This is for discussion only, and the presenter will be Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to discuss tonight possibility of drafting an ordinance that our city can pass, our council can pass, regarding one of the very few laws that the state of Oregon actually allows city to pass in regards to common sense gun control laws. And that is the ability for a city to prohibit actually, open carry unless you have a concealed weapons permit or you're a law enforcement. There's some exceptions to the rule, of course, but this would preclude people from walking around the city with guns in public. Many of our fellow neighboring cities have already passed this ordinance in their cities, and I would like to open up the discussion regarding having King City pass a similar ordinance. Any questions?
So is this for the entire city, or just the like city buildings, or?
Sorry. It's in public places, it would prohibit open carry in public places in King City.
Thanks, great idea.
Other comments or questions?
Yeah.
Actually.
No. I'll tell you that it's already illegal to carry a firearm into a public building.
Okay.
That's an ORS.
I'm just talking about in public,
Right.
so down the street.
Right,
Yep.
at the park.
Right, so this would, not that it's an ongoing problem, but when you're trying to make changes in gun control laws, it's very, very hard to start at the federal level. So we have to look locally and see what little changes we can make locally, and then hope that other people catch wind of it and make changes in their cities as well.
And I will say that, over the past, couple weeks, Chief Hapla and Kevin Barton and Commander Rogers from Tiger, there's been a lot of discussion about this. Now, obviously, I'm not privileged to most of that, but I do know that it's happening. And so they're just kind of trying to find out where everyone's at and, very importantly, where the district attorney is with it. So I think maybe next time Chief Hapla can discuss that, but I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, I'm not up to speed on all the rules and regulations that are associated with it, not to mention our, Second Amendment rights and all that jazz, how this comes into play. I do know that we don't have a criminal court in King City. And so if we did have something of this nature on our ordinances that, we don't necessarily have any measure or means to prosecute it, especially if Washington County, who we depend on for criminal court cases, doesn't have an ordinance of the same nature, right? So, we'd be asking Washington County to enforce a city ordinance. I'm not sure that their criminal court would. And I think that's what Chief Hapla is trying to discuss with District Attorney Kevin Barton and other chiefs around to see how that is actually, how it's exercised and how these laws are enforced, essentially. So there's some questions I think that we're still trying to figure out. Without Chief Hapla here, it's hard to go down that path without more information or make an educated decision on anything and speak from a knowledgeable standpoint. Hopefully, in the very near future, we do have. So my suggestion right now would be to kind of table this until we can get Chief Hapla here to discuss this in more detail, because he's going to have more information and he's going to have the knowledge of those conversations that I just haven't had.
I will tell you that it's been taken very seriously, and there's been some very serious talks. So, I mean, it's just a week or two old, and like Mike said, it's being discussed not just with the DA, but with other agencies and how they handle it. Now, in 16 years, I haven't had to respond to one open carry call. So I will say that it obviously is very rare, but very important. And the person who's been having the talks is not here, but I do want you guys to know that it's been taken very seriously.
Right. Candidly, I would love to learn what Kevin Barton is doing across the, across the county, because I know that we aren't the only council to raise this issue.
I can tell you it's not just passing an ordinance about open carry and then enforcing someone who's open carrying it. There's other misdemeanors involved, like, I know that Tiger does. They have their own unclassified misdemeanor that they use to try and prosecute it, but again, it's conversations with the commander there and the chief. So I guarantee you there'll be a lot more information this time of the month.
So the Tigers have their own criminal court then to?
They do not. They just,
So they
a city code that they adopted whenever they did is used to attempt to prosecute open carry.
So that
So they do have they have their own municipal court, though. They do.
They're not a court of record.
Right, they're not a court of record, but they have their own municipal court. We don't have a municipal court here. We have Judge Luby, who volunteered,
It's municipal, we have municipal court, we're just not a court of record.
We have a
You
municipal
have municipal court,
so
yes.
I'm really not firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, we have municipal court, but again, we're just like Tigard, we're not a court of record, and we don't prosecute, crimes, we do violations.
So they would depend on Washington County.
We 100% depend, just like Tigard, I believe, Tualatin and Sherwood, all depend on Washington County involved in their court.
So Tigard has passed this ordinance, what's keeping us from passing an ordinance?
Well, I think we've just basically learned about it, and trying to get Kevin Martin's take on it and what has happened over time with it. So
Right.
how it's been used, so
I think
that's,
they passed it like 10 years ago or something.
yeah, I don't know. I just learned about that ordinance.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to stop us from drafting an ordinance.
I think this is something that we're still, there's some information that Chief Hapla has that I think we should wait for him to present on this front, because there seems to be, just in preliminary discussions, a slight disconnect in those agencies. So, we're trying to figure out the roots of that and what it is, so that we don't create a law that's unenforceable.
I think if we could craft an ordinance similar to maybe what Tigard has, have it on the books, so it's ready to go.
I agree.
If and when there's, if the current DA doesn't agree, if and when the DA does get into office, then maybe it could be pursued, but at least there's something there ready to go. And it seems like that's what plan that what Tigard did.
Yeah, so
it's
it's
there.
the cities of Portland, Beaverton, Tigard, Oregon City, Salem, and Independence all have these ordinances. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have it as well.
So here's my one question, which in my State of the City, you weren't here, but I made a personal statement about, kind of the gun violence and, you know, epidemic here in sensible gun control I made a long portion of my State of the City on kind of this issue. And so I completely support you. One area that I think I might be trying to bridge in just a question about wanting some input is whether, is the purpose of our ordinance simply to take a stand and make a representation about our value system as a council, which in of itself, I think is the right thing to do, or is it to enforce and truly try to, keep open carry out of our public spaces? And so I think what the concern is, from probably the police department, is that if they can't enforce our ordinance, then what do they do, and what's our expectation of them, right? Are we really going to ask them to write tickets or engage with someone who's carrying a gun if there's no enforceability behind it? And so I think that's where it sounds like you guys would feel comfortable kind of understanding a little bit more and having a little more discussion about it. Is that an accurate?
We just need some clarity from Washington County. I don't think we're prepared to go down this road yet, because we still don't know all the facts, right? And the person who knows the most isn't even here to discuss it. And he's been talking with Washington County over the course of last week, since this was brought up, and we've been trying to get as many answers as we can, as fast as we can. But honestly, we've had 2 days and a weekend to try to get you as much information as we can, and some of that information is not ready for public consumption yet, because we don't have all the facts yet, right? And we don't want to go out speaking something that's not necessarily true, if it comes that the reality of it is something different than what we're understanding initially.
We have an ordinance drafted for our next meeting, and then, we can receive the information and then take a vote whether to pass it or not. If we have more questions, we can not pass it, bump it, or table it.
Okay, so ordinances are different than resolutions, okay? So if you create a new law, statewide, or citywide law, then you have to go through a huge adoption process. Okay, so we can't just go through and just willy-nilly pass an ordinance. We have to actually go through a pretty extended process. So we're having the discussion now. I would highly recommend we table it to figure out, get the people in the room that know what they're talking about and can actually talk to the council from a point of factual and legal basis and provide you with that information so you can make an educated decision on whether you want to pursue this. And then there's a couple options that you could do. You can put it on a ballot for public vote, or we go through citywide ordinance procedures and we notify everyone in the city and we have ourselves
Public hearing and, okay.
on that particular item.
Okay. So I think, Chief Hackle will be at the next meeting.
Yes.
So, Shauna, I think, you have pulled the information, right, because you have a kind of sample ordinance that you can base it off of, right? And so, then, I guess is knowing that the procedure is a little more involved, is everyone comfortable with, tabling this till next, put this on the next agenda, learn from Ernie and talk about next steps, or?
So I would want to, so today is a discussion item. But I would like to see whatever goes on the next agenda, we make a decision, like directing something to happen. I understand we can't just say, oh, there's an ordinance, next month. But I would like for it to be more, I would like for it to be an action item where we can, offer some direction, even if we, like, we need to probably talk about it until we have resolution, so. Or at least some of it.
Other comments and thoughts?
I'll just, interject that I'll continue my conversations with Chief Hackland. We've been communicating about what we can do, as a city, surrounding Benmont. We've been discussing also a buyback program or, educating the public that they can turn in firearms.
We just,
No questions asked.
we just did that actually, so it's working out quite.
Have we ever had a buyback program? Like, have we ever had someone take advantage of it?
It's been a while, yeah, we have, yeah.
Because I'd also be interested in maybe, looking, I don't know if, forming a subcommittee, and looking at all different types of programs and stuff, is what you do, or just open discussion between all of us, I don't know.
Well, Chief Hackland is really knowledgeable, and we've had a lot of back and forth. I've learned a lot from him, and I'd be happy to share that information with the council.
Okay.
I brought this up to him the first time about 2 years ago when I joined the council about inquiring about the buyback program, and at that time, think back 2 years ago, he said that ammunition, for example, is worth more than its weight in gold, or however he said it. But, people were standing in line, if you remember, to buy firearms. So it wasn't the right time, and I'm not sure that the situation has improved vastly since then. But he did direct me to Ceasefire Oregon to find out more information about funding a program like that, because first of all, if you want to do a buyback program, you have to have funds to fund it. So that was kind of my next step, was I was going to reach out to them and find out if they have funds available for that, and I'll report back. I'll continue following this.
Yeah.
Right now, we actually send folks to Northwest Armory. They buy them back, so we have citizens just recently, as of last week, that just use that. So for now, that's kind of our avenue of getting the guns back into the hands.
Right. So I think it sounds like, Tom, this is a great, kind of, area for you to kind of continue to educate us and bring us, additional programs. I mean, I think, and then, we haven't heard we haven't heard from you join in the conversation. If you want to join in on the conversation, let us know. Otherwise, it sounds like, let's add this to next month's agenda. And I don't think we don't need any further action on it to add it, right? It's not like you need a motion for us, do you?
A discussion item, I would just recommend that we table it until we actually have members here that can speak to it knowledgeably. That's my only advice on it, because I can speculate and I can talk about it, and I can guess what's going on, but if I'm wrong, it's just gonna reflect poorly on me.
To make sure it's not always only a discussion item, that we are able to, after learning more, whether it's next month or the month after, that we're able to then say what we would like the next steps to be. If that makes sense. Because like right now, if we said, please draft an ordinance,
Right.
like, we can't really do that since,
Right, I would say again that we don't have a criminal court,
right?
right? So the agency that's responsible for enforcing criminal court is Washington County, so I would recommend that whatever ordinances that we have on the books coincide with what Washington County has, because they're the ones that are enforcing it. And if it doesn't coincide, they likely won't enforce it. So, we need to have a discussion about that. The realities of what we as a small city can actually do, and what the purpose of non-enforceable laws, effects of non-enforceable laws. So, things that we need to discuss.
I mean, I agree we can pass it, but I think it's wrong that a county can tie their hands on something just because if they don't believe it, a city wants something that is.
I mean, the state ordinance specifically says the city can make a decision on this particular item, so that's in our power, but whether or not we can prosecute it is another story, but like Brian said a minute ago, in 13 years, he's never had to address this.
Right.
So, in essence, we may never have to do anything about it, except for draft an ordinance. You know, we don't see people walking around open carry all the time. It is more of a statement.
Totally.
In effect, that's what it is.
And even doing so, we can arrest and lodge people. It doesn't mean they're gonna get charged by the DA. That happens with this or anything else.
Exactly.
So.
Well, I will forward you all the information that I received back from Apple on this, and we will add it to next month's agenda to see where we're at that point.
We'll take, do you need us to, make a motion to table this to the next meeting, or,
No, I don't think so. I think it's really, I mean, the council wants to discuss it, put it on the agenda, and it's already, it'd be old business, so next meeting, it would fall under old business discussion. I understand what Councilor Moore is saying, like, gonna make a decision on something, or direct staff to come through an ordinance procedure and figure that whole side of things out. That's a pathway we can look at and prepare you some information on what it's gonna take.
all right. Any other comments or questions, discussion on that, that?
I just want to thank Shauna for bringing this to our attention, and I don't think she's going to let us forget this. I don't think we have to worry about that. So I appreciate that, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more information from the chief and for the other folks involved, so we can really be educated on this decision, on this question, and not rush into any kind of a decision prematurely.
I also want to thank you for bringing this to the attention and for all the background work that you did on it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything from Smart? Okay. All right, moving on to the lieutenant's report.
Not a lot to report. I'll just say that, we've been really hitting it hard on being out there on the property crimes. The burglaries were up. They've come down substantially, over the past month, like huge. Just focusing our efforts in certain areas from just parking cars and sitting there, to be a deterrent to, being out and talking to people, being more proactive. So, it's come down quite a bit since probably last talked to Chief Hapola. And then staffing, we're getting there. I'm not sure what he's covered, but we have another officer in the academy, almost halfway done. Another officer that went solo recently. We're getting there, getting real close. So trying to get another one as well right now as we speak. So, about all I have right now. It's been quiet. We'll keep doing what what we do for you guys, and everyone's excelling, doing well. Training, we're finally able to kick it up quite a bit because COVID's sort of going away, and so we got officers doing extra training finally in class in person. So that's all I have, not a whole lot.
Do you have any reminders for tomorrow?
Final day of school. Yes, drive slow. So yes, there will be extra red and blue lights. We always try to be there for that last day because it always seems to be worse than the first day as far as congestion. So you'll see us around. That's all I'll say.
Do parents want to get their kids out of school that way?
Walk to school if you can, or let us stop traffic before you try to get out of that parking lot. But yeah, we'll be around, have your police presence, and try to get your kids home safely the last day of the year.
Just because we're talking about the last day of school, prior to the next day of school for next year, I'd like us starting in kind of probably mid-August to do a kind of campaign in the city about, you know, the traffic backup on 131 and that they need to start having, you know, planning their September a little different. So we can cross that bridge, but I only say it now because it popped into my brain and it's important, I think, to have those reminders.
It is. It's very important, and yeah, we definitely need to make sure we stay on top of that. We've had ideas too for that driveway coming in and out of there too, so.
Right. City manager's report.
Sorry, can I ask the lieutenant a quick question?
Sure can.
I'm sorry, I really should have said, I don't have any questions.
I didn't drive you guys out.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mayor Tubbs, thank you.
I just was wondering if you've had an uptick in any reports of hiring being slashed in King City lately?
I have 0 reports of that,
Okay,
so, yeah.
thank you.
Happy to say that, by the way.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Other questions, for Elizabeth Sigler?
Just a comment that you said I have seen them a lot more. I'm in my office overlooks the park, so I see you guys coming and going throughout the day.
Yes, yeah, they're to be driving. Like, we try to hit every street twice a day.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's not a whole lot of sitting around here. Unless it's in a car. It's all about. Anything else?
Anything else? Yep, all right.
All right, there you go, sir.
All right, Mike.
Well, our budget's passed. It's been a busy month, but for the most part, so far there's some things going on, but not too much on the regional level. Master plan is continuing to chunk away. We start seeing some preliminary draft analysis starting coming in from the different sub-consultants, and each one provides like a little puzzle piece here, a little puzzle piece there, that you're trying to piece together the whole thing. Some of it is engineering documents that just show random modeling numbers that you have to try to figure out what that's supposed to mean. I do my best to listen to what they say and pull and glean as much information as I can. But the documents are starting to come together. I believe that they're on a track to actually have those done by probably the end of July, if not a little bit earlier. And we should probably start seeing what those are leading toward, right? And so I'm excited to see how that comes together. And after that, I believe we have another round of public information meetings and things of that nature in August. Planning Commission presentation and City Council presentation, along with, that'll be with the data in the completed report. I believe also there's presentations with the SAC, it's the stakeholder group, and the Technical Advisory Committee group. Those are all slated for August. And then after that, you're looking at probably a month or two of revision before we start seeing work on the master plan, final documents from the master plan start coming in, and start getting ready to public hearings before the Planning Commission. We'll need to ramp up commissioner and council training prior to the large public hearings on them, just so that we're all feeling comfortable with the proper procedures for public hearing, Robert's rules, all those grand things. And so what I'm trying to do is arrange training sessions for the planning commission and city council through the League of Oregon Cities, hopefully, or special districts. I believe both have training programs, so I'm going to try to get that arranged. I'll try to coordinate with the council at their, as soon as I get some dates from them, I'll send them your way. Chief Apple is out this week. I know that he's been working hard on a few other items as well. We have, the TSP's just been kind of hanging in the back. We have a draft report from them, but a lot might change depending on however the analysis comes. So we haven't gone to releasing that yet because we don't know what the final analysis is going to say and what elements of the TSP have to be changed before we send it out. So, but it is good to kind of see everything coming together. We held a open house, question and answer over Zoom last night. There was, I saw 69, Steve said he saw 70. So it had good participation. We answered questions for approximately 2.5 hours. I think we got out of there around 8:30 is when we called it the end. I think there was some good information gleaned from having the traffic engineer there to answer some of those technical questions and understanding that this has been a long process. It started back in 2016 when we saw development coming down the mountain at us, and we decided to be proactive instead of having it be dictated to us at a later date. We are definitely behind budget, or not behind budget, behind schedule by about a year from what we were projecting, which in the larger scheme of things, on a 5-year process, really isn't that bad. I mean, we figured 4 years, and I think we're year 6. We figured we'd probably be done by, it was supposed to be December of 2021 was the initial projection. And now we're projecting that we should finalize the process by, I want to say February, March of 2023, depending on how many times or how long the public hearings go. So the way public hearings go, depending on how much testimony you get, it could take one meeting, one all-day meeting. It could take 2 all-day meetings. It could take 4. It could take 5. It could take 6. We're not going to know until we get into it, but I think we'll just plan for the duration for however long it takes. And once it gets through Planning Commission, then it'll come to City Council. A lot of the stuff that's circulating right now, we have signs popping up again. Some of these are in violation of our sign ordinances. We're trying to talk to owners when we see violations. Right now we have a violation on the corner of 131st and Fisher that we're going to have to go address. Signs, we don't mind the yard signs or political signs if they're in private property, but when they place them in public right-of-ways or public properties, we have to confiscate them. So it's just something to be aware of. If you see a sign that you posted and all of a sudden it's missing, it was probably in a public right-of-way and we had to take it down.
The public right of way, is that like a center median, or like what specifically, just refresh our memory on what exactly that is?
Like the back side of the sidewalk. It's like 2 feet
Oh,
on the other side.
The verge, they call it, between the curb and the sidewalk?
No,
I thought.
the right-of-way itself is, it extends probably about 2 feet from the back edge of the sidewalk, because that's where a lot of our public utilities run, down the back edge of the sidewalk. And then you have the planter strip on the front side of the sidewalk, and then you have the curb and the asphalt. So the right-of-way is from, the back side we typically use the back side of the sidewalk on each side of the street, and then, there's public right-of-way. that extend down Fisher Road, and then there's, right-of-ways that go down the Bonneville lines and at the parks and everything else. So we just encourage, if you're gonna put a sign, keep it on your private property. Please don't put it in public domain, and we won't confiscate it. That being said, it still needs to meet our sign code, needs to meet our sign restrictions. And sometimes it requires a sign permit. So, we encourage it to keep it lawful, please. Other than that, we, put out an offer for the position. The person, we're still waiting on some final responses and things, so I'm not gonna go into any of the introductions yet. Our hope is to bring that individual on and get them started as soon as possible. As you are aware, it's been a little stressful post-COVID because we are one of the only passport windows that is walk-in. A lot of the other agencies went to appointment only, and so everyone, and of course they're booked like 6 months out. So everyone that needs a passport between now and 6 months from now is knocking on our door. Other than that, doing the grant for officers, community officer, pursuing a grant for that. We're still keeping our eyes open for trail grants, for street grants. We do have 3 streets slated for construction this summer. Queen Anne, Carmelo, Mino, and Monterey. Thank you. I was asked to speak at the Garden Villa Homeowners Association last week, so I went down there and chatted with them about some of the upcoming things that are going to be affecting them, like the road construction in their area. There were some questions about the master planning efforts and Fisher Road, what that impact looks like to them. I tried to share with them as much information as I have without speculating too much. A lot of it's speculation at this point, you know, to be honest. There's a lot of speculation, and we're trying to figure it out the best we can as we go. Trying to keep our messaging on the positive side and as factual as we can make it. Last thing I want to do is put out false information that ends up getting twisted around. So, anyways, that's where we're at. Not much more to report than that.
Mike, can you just go through the time frame one more time? So, August, there's going to be additional presentations made to council, planning commission, to the stakeholder committees, likely. There'll be, we heard from Steve Faust last night that there's going to be some public outreach in August, right? Then walk through the time frame from that point forward, because I think I will bring this up again when I speak, but there has been some incorrect information that has gone out about time for people to get involved. So let's just be very clear on what people at home, if they're watching us, what they can expect on how to become involved, or what to expect on what future involvement is available to them.
Sure. I think that some of the information, when it initially started, we got a late start on the alternative analysis, right? Because we got held up in contracting for a couple months. That put us about 2 months behind. So our whole timeline kind of got pushed back.
For a very long time.
Yeah, well, we were paused while we were trying to figure it out, right? So, I mean, we got pushed back almost an entire year. Because the master plan was supposed to be finished in December of 2021. But because of natural condition and the alternative analysis and all that, we got pushed back, and COVID, of course, we got pushed back, what is equating to be about 12, 16 months, to be honest. But we're still trying to move the football down the field and get this project wrapped up so we can get on with other business. But right now, timeline, to your point on timeline. Initially, I think everything was supposed to be, we were supposed to have alternatives wrapped up by summer, this summer. I think that's getting pushed back to late summer. So now you're seeing the alternative analysis come in. We should have everything pulled together by August is what they're estimating. So we should have at least a draft of all the alternatives and findings and everything in August. And that will be presented to your stakeholders group, your technical advisors group, the planning commission, and then the city council. Right? It's still not a public hearing. It's informational. It's presentation to those bodies of the information that they've conducted and brought together, and a feedback section, right? So it's informational feedback. We're presenting you what we found, you know, not the public hearing, but it is informational gathering still and feedback gathering. After that, consultants take the feedback, they take the information that they've gathered from those presentations, from those bodies, from the technical groups, from the stakeholders, everything else, and see how they can apply that into a final draft, final version of the document that then goes to the planning commission for presentation to public hearing. So imagine they do their presentation for feedback and information in August. Got to give them a month or two to synthesize that feedback and implement it into the document itself. So September, October, you see a document probably end of October, early November maybe. And then you have a notice. So at that point in time, I believe we have a 35-day notice to Department of Land Conservation and Development that we are moving forward with a post-acknowledgement plan amendment, right? And then you would have a 21-day notice. I believe ours is 21-day notice to everyone within the impacted area and surrounding land. So that would be a citywide notice to addresses of record. Everyone would get their flyer that there's going to be a public hearing on the matter and that this might affect your property. And it's the legal jargon that goes in a public notice. That all goes out. And then we would conduct a public hearing scheduled with the Planning Commission. I think right now we'd be looking at coordinating with Deer Creek. Or I think Deer Creek would be the only facility that's large enough to handle it. So we would try to coordinate something with Deer Creek to utilize their auditorium again, or their gym space there, and conduct a public hearing, not once, but I think we'd try to block at least 2 days, 2 to 3 days, at different intervals. So probably you have a planning commission that kicks off at 9:30. Maybe it goes from 9:30 to 4 one day, and then we continue it to the next week. And then the next week you have another planning commission meeting that goes from 9:30 to 4 again. And if necessary, you continue it to the week after that. So potentially 3 weeks, 3 public sessions of public hearings, taking testimony, going through that process, and the planning commission would need to close the public hearing, debate the matter, recommend any modifications, changes, what have you, and then that recommendation gets put into their findings document, and that findings document goes up for review by the city council. With that, we go through another round of public notices that city council will be considering an ordinance, our ordinance procedure. That could take, another, I think we have to do another 21-day notice on that front. We have to go to a regular city council meeting, announce the matter, and conduct a public hearing. So that would be another time that city council would probably want to schedule Another public hearing at Deer Creek in the auditorium. You might want to think about doing an all-day session. You probably are going to need 2 or 3 all-day sessions. So then you're looking at, city council is a little different than planning commission, so you're probably looking at a 2-week window between meetings. So you would have 2, maybe 3 public hearings on that front. So you're looking at, the way I'm figuring it right now, if everything comes in November, and then you have planning commission December, January, then you have city council end of February, March, and possibly adopting some sort of findings by the end of March, early April, if you stay dedicated to having consistent full-day meetings, get it knocked out. So, I mean, that's, that's long-winded explanation of timelines, but kind of what you're looking at. That answer?
That is much more.
And then you have appeals.
Oh, can I ask a question? If we want to have one or more alternatives removed at this point, is that something that can be achieved?
No. We need the alternatives to go through the analysis. So we have to go through the analysis. The consultants are retained through a grant by Metro that stipulates that we have to have X amount of alternatives, and we need to let them do their work. And then at the end, what we'll do is choose a preferred alternative. And so I would think in August, when we get that report, we should have a recommendation, and at that point in time, you could remove the alternative that you're looking at. So that would be the time to think about it. And I would say there's a distinct clarification. The alternatives that are in there are part of a road network, and we're looking at the classification of that road network, whether it's local streets, local collector, neighborhood route, what have you. It's not necessarily we're removing roads. So I just caution the council to think of it more as like a road network and how we classify those road networks. And to think about what the ramifications of removing roads are to the rest of the traffic throughout that area and what that does to the other roads. So it's a network as a whole, and I think the consultants will do a much better job explaining it tonight.
I thought they started to explain it last night, and one of my takeaways from it, which I hope that as they continue to do outreach, it will also become more apparent, is that they are required to look at all routes, good, bad, or indifferent, and that they aren't trying, their starting point wasn't necessarily like, these are all the great routes. It was more like, these are the routes, and then we have to analyze which one is good, bad, and indifferent, rather than, and that was my takeaway from that last night, which I thought was a little bit more helpful, because then you understand, well, why the hell, if we all know one option is just absolutely not going to work, right, then why are we still talking about it? And I thought that they did a good job last night about, it was almost like, okay, well, even if this costs $250 million and 15 bridges, we still have to include it, discuss it, in fairness of the metrics of how the analytics are. I mean, that was my kind of takeaway. Is that accurate in a way, or?
I believe so. I think when we look at it, we're trying to figure out what the pros and cons are of each line item, right? And the thing is to also think of it, this is a plan, right? And so we want to make sure that what we're doing when this land actually does develop to its maximum capacity actually provides the best benefit for the people that are living there, right? How are they going to get access to the parks? How are they going to get access to schools? How are they going to get access to the natural resource areas, to the parks? And we want to make sure that all those social justice, quantifiers are checked, those boxes are checked, and that we're planning appropriately for the types of housing and populations that will inevitably come with the growth that's coming our way, and making sure that we're doing it in a sustainable manner and a responsible manner. Right? And so, like, going through and eliminating alternatives, if you will, at this point in time without knowing how those might affect our land uses or how they might affect what the impact would be on social classes, what the impact might be on marginalized communities. Those are things that I think is important to know before we make any decision.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I guess my point and kind of echoing what Jamie just said is, if, for example, there's no way that we're going to approve one of these or more of these alternatives, why are we paying all these planners and consultants to do all of this research when we may already know that we're gonna say no? Why move forward with something that's not feasible? You know what I'm saying? We're just spending money on that, aren't we?
The money that's being spent is to evaluate the alternatives to identify which one should be the collector. Right? So all the roads, all those alternatives that are on there could serve a purpose and are part of the transportation system plan. So there's all those roads are in the transportation system plan, and when those properties are developed, those roads would be developed. At what level and classification are those roads developed? That's the question, right? So maybe option one doesn't work as a collector road, but it might serve as a local road, or it might serve as a multimodal transportation network, right? So maybe it's bikes and pedestrian, right? Or maybe it's electric scooters or electric golf carts or something, right? Maybe it serves that purpose, but it doesn't serve vehicular traffic. And maybe alternative two serves, the best transit, but it doesn't serve the best multimodal. Or maybe option three serves the best public infrastructure, but it doesn't serve the best environmentally, right? Each one is going to have those pros and cons, but the transportation system plan network will require developers to develop their street network in accordance with the plan as a whole. And then those alternatives, we're trying to select which of those alternatives is going to be the main neighborhood route.
To back up just a bit, Metro is requiring us to do this.
That's correct.
Right, so that's why we can't let us know we have to, because Metro is requiring us to do this. Okay.
Yeah, Metro put in the condition regarding the Bankston easement in there. I don't think they understood exactly the ramifications of that condition when they did it. I think the intention at that point in time, I was in the room when we were discussing it with the Columbia Land Trust, and we were talking about how we could try to minimize our impacts through that area by, veering to the north a little bit or trying to use a bridge instead of a culvert. I mean, these were conversations that we were having around the table at that point in time. It was never off the table that we were going to go through that easement, but it was discussed. And so, anyways, we're dealing with that condition that Metro put in place, and that condition requires us to go through and evaluate all the different routes, legitimate routes through that area, and find out which was the best one. And so that's what we're trying.
All right, then it is time for our council report. So, Lori, since I see you first, you get to go again first.
Here, I gotta go again first. So of course, I went to MPAC last month. I keep you guys updated on what Metro is doing. This past month, they had two interesting things. Well, the first one was what they call an update to their place Making Grant Program. Have you heard of that before? Or you could call it Connecting to Place. Program began in 2017, and in their words, it provides grants that support community-led, equity-centered, arts and culture-based efforts that strengthen people's connections to each other and the places they care about. All right? And
I will tell you, the King City Community Foundation applied for a placemaker grant back in 17, 18, around there.
yeah. So in 2022, they had 82 applications, but they only have 193,000 to disperse each cycle. This year, there'll be 11 groups receiving grants ranging from $5,000 to $25,000. And applications for 2023 cycle will open in early August. So anyone who's got something going, make it count. The second topic concerns homelessness. And this year, MPACT is going to be listening, learning, and providing feedback on programs that address homelessness in the region. This month's presentation was specifically about site-team shelters and some of the barriers that are faced by local providers in the metro area. And the hope is that MPACT members might be able to use their roles, counselors, mayors, et cetera, to remove or mitigate those barriers. So Portland and Washington County both had really good presentations concerning this. You can find that information on Metro's website. So that takes care of MPACT. King City Condos, they had their elections last month. They were electing a whole new board. Oh, wow. 7 people. They were starting over from scratch. And that was accomplished. Their new chair there is Beth Freeman. Nice guy, I know. And then King City Garden Village, as you know, Mike Weston was the speaker at the last Garden Village meeting, and I will say Mike did a great job. The only other thing I wanted to mention to you guys was that I had the opportunity to go on Clean Water Services Upper Tualatin River Watershed.
Oh, I really wanted to go.
Oh my gosh, that was, but they're gonna do them again.
Okay.
But if you have an opportunity, it's absolutely fabulous to see the Tualatin River running free, running over rocks, and, you know, like, it was a lot of river to look, compared to what we see it here in the urban area, so really fascinating.
Oh, fun.
So, and that's it.
Great. Fun.
Not a whole lot to report. I think last night's, the open house was good. There's a lot of good questions, answers. Hopefully some of those got answered, and if not, they will be down the road. We'll just compile the information.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all I have.
Okay, wonderful. We'll just run down the line here. So, let's see, a couple weeks ago, I spoke with 9 other mayors at the Westside Economic Alliance breakfast, and that was exciting to kind of highlight and amplify King City on a more regional basis. I got to meet the Westside Economic Alliance is quite interesting in that it bridges the gap between kind of the private sector and the government sector, and has a lot of great committees and kind of projects, and has a big powerhouse behind it. So that was kind of exciting. I met, Dave Runyon and I met with the Girl Scout troop, if you recall, that came to our council meeting and requested to install a peace pole down at the park. And so the peace pole is going to be installed at the park on July 2nd. And we designed a pocket kind of corner where Dave is going to put some potting, kind of some more better soil for us. And we will also be planting, I have to do a little bit of research about what we really want to do is plant milkweed, if you recall that conversation, to kind of encourage the monarch butterfly growth and have, with the hopes of having kind of this, living art component to the pony wall down there. I just don't know a lot about milkweed, and I don't know if I can get starters, at what time you're supposed to plant it, and so forth, so I gotta do a little research. So it might be that for the first year, it might be some other type of maybe bee pollinating, encouraging flowers, or some other native, organ plants or something. So that will be on the horizon. And so that's at 10 a.m. on July 2nd, if anyone wants to come. We won't be announcing it for, I guess it is announced here for the public, in this meeting. We aren't necessarily inviting the public due to kind of COVID, and also we want to really have, the shine be on the Girl Scout troop themselves. So it's not going to be a big citywide event. We will be having our 4th of July festival, or excuse me, let me be very clear. We will be having our 4th of July parade. We will not be having the festival afterwards. So currently, we're trying to see if, can we get a few things down at the park, for maybe a couple bouncy houses or some food, a little something, but we just felt, while, COVID is, it's kind of up and down at the moment. It's certainly on a little bit of the downslope, but we thought that maybe one more year before we break out our full festival is warranted. I'm meeting I've been asked to speak at the Highlands annual meeting that is next week, so I will be going to that. And I also, and my mayor's morning. Okay. So, I had quite a few attendees at my mayor's morning. I was so pleased. So I'm very happy. All of my complaining every month for the past 5 months has suddenly paid off. And so a few takeaways from it. So there was a few residents of Rivermead. There was a few residents from KCC and Crawford. There was a few residents from Edgewater. And we had some very thoughtful and kind of open and honest conversations. I think that there is still a very strong perception problem on both sides of between the council and I think between some residents who have been vocal in opposition to kind of what we're doing. I offered to the folks who attended from Rivermead that I'd be happy to meet with them and meet with their board and go and speak with them or invite them all to coffee, right? Because I think continued dialogue is really important because we just have a perception problem all around on all. I was very pleased. So I thought the takeaway was good. There was also a couple of good suggestions. So one of on non-master planning issues, there was some discussion about a desire to really continue to uplift and rehab our commercial center down here, and also to highlight, and one thing that had been specifically requested of me, which I will do now, is to highlight the facelift of the building that is kind of across the stop sign, or kind of down there just south of what is now the new McCann. But that building has been renovated. It is beautiful. They did a great job. I would love to, Ronnie, if you can get a hold of, or let me know who owns the building, who renovated the building. I would love to do a shout out on social media because it does look absolutely beautiful. And so the resident had come to tell me, one, they wanted to know more about the rehab, but also to ask that we continue to do all of that. So I'd love to wave at Magic Wand and do the whole city center, the whole commercial center, but there's that. Then some other discussion that came out of the mayor's morning was some concern over lack of crosswalks on Fisher, and that, there was, kind of some desire to get, some additional crosswalks there. And then, candidly, a lot of it was, to discuss, the master planning process and, frustrations and feedback and concerns about, some of all of that. Last night, I don't know, did all of us attend? No. So, I was pleased with the evening. I thought there was thoughtful, questions. Everyone remained respectful, and, I thought it was helpful to have the transportation, engineer there. I thought she did a great job. Mike and I did have a chance to just quickly debrief a little bit with Steve and what's her name? Ann, that's right, and Ann. And I think that what one of the takeaways is that it would be helpful to have kind of more experts at some of the next ones. I meant to bring it tonight. I didn't. So I have it in my phone. But I am so those are the positives. On a frustrating note, I'm going to call this out because it's my prerogative. So a couple mailers I have received in the mail. And both of the mailers, which when I Googled the return address is a realtor office, but both of these mailers state in huge bold lettering, this is your last chance to share your concerns. And I find this deceitful and false narrative, this information that is only designed to cause panic and mass participation through panic. I find it abhorrent, and it doesn't do anyone any good. As everyone could hear tonight, the timeline is still very long, and there is umpteen opportunities for public engagement, public hearing, to put your concerns officially on the record. And up until this point, our engagement has been outreach. We all on this council have held our hands up multiple times about ways that we could have done better, right? We have acknowledged that the master planning process through COVID has been horrible for public outreach and engagement. It was not, right? Had we known a global pandemic would descend upon us, we would have probably punted and done this a few years later so that we could get better engagement. But we don't have hindsight, right? So, right, with hindsight, we can say those things. I beg, I implore, I request for those who are organizing efforts, whether they're for, against, or indifferent, please send accurate information out to people. We are having a hard enough time trying to get people to engage with us in, right, at just any level, but to have mass panic over false information is just simply not, it's not okay. So, I will leave it at that, but otherwise, it's been a busy month. I've had lots, I'm sure there's many other things that I've done. I spend about 30 hours a week on council stuff. So I'm sure there was more things I did, but I can't remember now. So with that, I'll end. Megan.
Not much to add this month. I think everybody's already mentioned the meeting last night and a lot of the activity that's been going on. So I don't have anything to add at this time.
Great. Thank you. I don't have any updates, but I do want to say congratulations to all of our King City graduates from all of the high schools, and also the 8th graders moving on to high school, the 5th graders moving on, and all the new kindergartners will get to see actually second week of school is when they'll start to come, but that's That's a big congratulations from all of us.
I don't have a lot to add either. Tomorrow is our, WACA Board of Commissioners meeting. So I'll have an update at our next meeting, about that, and that's all I have, I think.
So one, I see comments on our Zoom, and as a reminder, the council does not interact with any chat function during our council meetings. The time for public comment is at the beginning of our meeting. And it's smart, great. And so that is smart. That I was going to say, if it's from Smart, if you can read it to us, that'd be great.
The WAB on June 8th, and nothing of concern at the river level. Okay, average daily monthly water usage, it was low compared to historical data. Thanks, Councilor Julie.
Thank you, Councilor O'Shea. All right, so tonight we are moving into executive session. Hopefully we'll be quick in our executive session because it's been a long evening already, but we are moving into executive session. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn the council meeting, and then we'll take a 5-minute break and enter into executive session.
I
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And then Ronnie, do we know how Smart's gonna interact with it? Is he?
Should we just have a
They
call?
give the numbers, call on one of our phone numbers, yeah. Okay. All right, perfect. Yeah, there's a ton of food back there.
I think Ronnie just put it all away.
Oh, did he? Oh, here, I have some meat. Yeah. Sorry, that was me off so bad. I didn't even tell you. I know, I need my cool order. I'm making a complaint in this.